really, really, really special. Books are stepping stones to your best self. Can you imagine a world without children's storybooks? Wouldn't that be a weird place? We're so lucky in Ireland, as we have wonderful writers in Ireland. And among them have been great children's writers, wonderful children's writers. And really, it was time that we had a Laureate in the know, wasn't it? Isn't it a wonderful thing? And a great gift to have you as Laureate in the know.
From the President of Ireland?
Well, that was a pretty nice feeling, actually. I would recommend it. Yeah, it's, it doesn't happen every day. It doesn't even happen every lifetime. But it was a really nice thing, and she spoke so well. I was really very moved by what she said about the importance of books and the importance of being able to read.
Began really, I suppose, because you'd be asked to deal with 25 children, and I felt you couldn't really cope with 25 stories. There wasn't time to really cope properly with 25 stories. So I thought, well, how do I reduce the number of stories and yet give everybody a chance to be involved? And the solution I came up with was, well, if we group the children and they work together, so then we have maybe 5 stories rather than 25.
That's not part of the game.
That's not.
So that was how it began. It was a very pragmatic solution. But once I started doing that, getting the children to work in groups, I discovered it was the most wonderful method, because collaboration is just such a great way to write a story. And I hadn't realised that before I started doing it with children. Now, the children certainly, very often I got resistance, but once they get into it, they love it. It's such good fun. So I've become a real advocate now of the collaborative method.
That couldn't be part of the game. I think when children think of the word art, they almost always think of paintings. So I think of things that are laid flat against a wall, whereas sculpture is something that's sort of out in the middle of the room or in the middle of a garden or a space, and you can actually walk around it and see it from different angles.
Hi! Look at those trees, you know, like they sort of triangle trees.
Triangle trees?
Yeah.
Reminds me of Alice in Wonderland, actually.
Yeah. Everything here reminds me of Alice in Wonderland.
Really? This exhibition is part of a wider cultural exchange around children's literature between Austria and Ireland. This is the first stage of a programme called Books Beyond Borders. This part of it is Images Beyond Borders. But it's also very satisfying, isn't it?
It's very nice to see your own books in a
finish up. Yeah, but apart from that, actually doing the work of it is quite satisfying. It's hard work, but it's very satisfying work because you've always have a problem when you're writing. You're kind of struggling to make the thing work out properly, make the plot work, and make sure the character comes home safe at the end of the story. But then when you achieve it, when you get that right, it's a lovely feeling, isn't it? Writing projects in a couple of schools because they had particular meaning to me. One was I did a longish residency. When I say long, I mean it was 2 months with a local school to me. I thought it was nice to do something local. I could just stroll in the morning and do some work and stroll in again. So that was very unpressured, and it was nice to be working with a local school. And I also did a residency with a school for visually impaired children because I'm visually impaired myself, and I thought it would be nice to go in there and talk to children about, you know, I didn't talk to them at all about being visually impaired because they know all about it. I don't need to tell them anything about being visually impaired. But they could just accept that here I was and I was a writer and I was visually impaired, so what? So I really liked doing that with the blind and visually impaired children. So I did a little bit of that, but mostly I've done things in a more public way, I suppose, at a national level.
I see my children with eye touches and how they can navigate the pages. Is there a future for children's books in the kind of advancement of technology?
I'm visually impaired and I can't read. So therefore, I have a very broad-minded view of other ways of getting hold of your books. And so I read audiobooks, and I call that reading. I don't call it listening, I call it reading, because that's as near as I can get really to reading.
I'm just wondering how important it is within your role as Laureate as being being representatives for your respective nations, and sort of the idea of, you know, what children's literature is specifically within the nation that you're representing. I'm wondering, is that something that you sort of consciously think about? Is it something that sort of makes up a definite part of the role?
I think it's quite a small part of it, actually. I mean, it is there, and it may grow. I think as the Irish Laureateship grows, perhaps that will become something that we will try to develop, the international connections.
Giving children access to books, to well-written books, to good books, it gives them this access to a whole store of words and the pleasure of language, the music of language, and it opens up so many things to children that they just wouldn't have access to in other ways.